Welcome to True Crime Naija. On this show, we present to you true stories of crimes that happen in our country. We hope that by sharing these stories, we all become more aware of the types of crime that happen here. And by becoming aware, we become smarter at detecting and hopefully preventing similar crimes. And as always, we welcome feedback. Reach out to us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and WhatsApp. Today, we bring you the story of a domestic argument gone very wrong. Akolade is driving as fast as he can, unsure of his destination. This definitely isn't how he planned to spend his birthday. His daughter was with his in-law because he and his wife were supposed to have some time alone today. Everything that happened in the past few hours is flashing before his eyes. Akolade is finding it hard to concentrate on driving, but as he snaps back to reality, he sees a couple of policemen waving at him. They want him to stop. His heart starts to race. What should he do now? Slowly, he winds down the window and a policeman asks him to step out of the car. Akolade obeys, and just as he is stepping out, he slumps to the ground. The policemen rush to their van to get first aid to revive him, but as soon as they turn their backs, Akolade gets up and tries to run across the road. His movement is so sudden that an oncoming driver knocks Akolade down.
Hi, I'm Anthonieta.
I'm Richard.
And I'm John.
And this story
could save
your life. It's Saturday, the 25th of June, 2011. Falake is shopping for foodstuff at the market. Her phone rings. The call is from her sister Hadejia. Falake picks up the call and Hadejia tells her that something terrible has just happened and that she needs to rush to the apartment of their elder sister. Falake leaves the market and immediately gets a cab. She gives him the address and asks him to move as fast as he can. When they arrive at the apartment, she pays the driver and rushes into the compound. She takes the stairs to her elder sister's apartment, and when she gets to the door, she notices that for some reason the door has been forcefully opened. Falake rushes in. She heads straight for her sister's room. When she gets to the room, Falake comes to an immediate stop. Her eyes widen in shock. Her elder sister, Titilayo, is lying on the bed with deep cuts on her face, a knife in her neck, and a big hole on the left side of her chest. One of her eyes appears to be dangling from the socket. Titilayo's entire body is lying in a pool of blood. Falake runs out screaming.
Titilayo Arowolo was a 29-year-old banker at Polaris Bank. She was a graduate of Ambrose Ali University in Delta State, and she had a postgraduate certificate from Lagos State University. From the photos of her on the internet, Titilayo was beautiful with a dark complexion and a friendly smile. She started working with the bank in 2007, and according to one of her colleagues, Titilayo was a hard-working woman who was due for a promotion at the bank. Titilayo married Akolade Arowolo in 2008, and the union was blessed with a baby girl a year later in 2009. When Akolade married Titilayo, he was about 28 years old, so 2 years older than Titilayo. At that time, he was a self-acclaimed youth pastor. And from pictures of him online, Akolade is tall, a bit plump and dark, and wore a clean-shaved haircut. Titilayo and Akolade have been married for 3 years.
Titilayo usually calls her father, George Oyahire, every day. And on Friday the 24th of June, that's the same day Akolade gets hit by the car, Titilayo calls her father. She's panicking. She says something that makes him anxious, and before he can reply, the line goes dead. Disturbed, Titilayo's father immediately calls her sister Folake and tells her to quickly go and check on Titilayo. George lives in Kano, while Titilayo and her sisters live in Lagos.
Wait, I thought Folake received the call already to check up on Titilayo. From another sister, right?
Yes, but remember that was on Saturday. This call was on Friday, and it was their dad that called. So that Friday, Folake decides to rush to Titilayo's place. But because it's raining, she decides to call instead. She frantically dials her sister's number several times, but the number won't connect. One more try and the call goes through. A male voice answers the call. It's Akolade, Titilayo's husband. Folake tells him she wants to speak with her sister. He tells her that they just had a minor argument and it has been resolved. But when she insists on speaking to her sister, he tells her to hold on for 2 minutes, and afterwards he hangs up the call. Folake calls back repeatedly. The phone rings and rings and rings, but there is no response. So Folake gives up and didn't think anything of it. She goes about her business.
Okay, so it might have just been a couple's argument.
Right. And Titilayo and Akolade's marriage was not always a peaceful one. According to Titilayo's family, Akolade had been abusing Titilayo and even threatened to throw her over their flat. Titilayo had reportedly returned to her family home several times after arguments with Akolade, but she always reunited with him soon afterwards. She didn't report his abuse or threats to the police. On Friday, the 24th of June, the couple has a fight.
Adewale Adeyemi lives in the apartment below Titilayo and Akolade's apartment. That Friday, he is in his apartment making a cup of coffee when he hears the sound of a metal object falling down. The sound seems to be coming from the flat above his, but it's raining, and so Adeyemi is not sure what the sound may have been. He had just gotten back home and is trying to get some rest, so he decides to ignore the sound, but then, a few minutes later, he hears his neighbor's voice, Akolade. It seems like Akolade had come downstairs, so Adeyemi decides to ask Akolade about the sound. Adeyemi opens the door, but before he could say anything, he notices that Akolade's palm is soaked with blood. It looks like he has a deep cut in his palm. Adeyemi asked, "What's going on?" But Akolade, who appears to be in a hurry, ignores him and hurries into his car. Akolade yells for the gateman, the security guard, to open the gate, and he zooms off. Adeyemi goes back into his apartment. He shuts the door and calls his wife to tell her about what just happened. He then calls other neighbors, and later that day, Adeyemi and these other neighbors go to Akolade and Titilayo's apartments. They knock and knock, but no one answers. Then they call Titilayo and Akolade's phone numbers. Still no answer. They leave and decide to report the matter to the police station the next day.
The next day, Saturday, the neighbors report the matter to the Aswani police station. Adeyemi tells them what he witnessed, that he heard a metal sound from the apartments above and then saw his neighbor Akolade with a bloody palm. The police follow the neighbors back to the house. When they get to Titilayo and Akolade's apartment door, they force it open. They go to the bedroom and there, they find Titilayo lying in a pool of her own blood. Okay, so all of this is now happening on Saturday. But remember we said that the day before, Friday, Akolade got hit by a car?
Right. Police had stopped him when he passed out and they were trying to give him first aid.
Exactly. So after Akolade gets hit by a car, he just picks himself up and immediately gets an Okada, which is our local commercial motorcycle, and he flees.
Wait, what?
Yup. The police officers who were trying to revive him were equally shocked. The police immediately seize his car and take it to the Aswani police station. That same day, Friday.
On Saturday night, around 11 p.m., Akolade goes back to his and Titilayo's apartment. That's where he was arrested and charged with murdering his wife, Titilayo Arowolo.
But why?
Well, it's not clear. During trial, Akolade denies killing his wife, claiming that he loved her and their daughter very dearly. He said that on that day, he wanted to stay in for his birthday and just watch TV, maybe some movies also. But when he got home, Titilayo was dressed up. According to him, she wanted them to go out. They argued, but then they eventually decided to stay in. She goes to the kitchen to prepare his birthday meal. He says that at some point when Folake called, he answered and went to look for his wife to give her the phone. He goes to the kitchen to look for her but doesn't see her. Then he goes towards the bedroom. As he's going to the bedroom, he feels a very sharp object on his left arm and he saw blood gushing out. He recognized the knife as the one his wife was using in the kitchen to cut meat. This is all according to him. He says he did everything he could to avoid the stabs and even tried taking the knife from her, but she continued to lash at him, injuring him on his left chest, the navel, and his right palm. He claims that she said she was going to kill him and also kill herself.
Oh wow. So did she kill herself?
Well, Akolade doesn't say that she killed herself in his presence. According to him, they struggle and he tries to get away, but the door to the apartment was locked and he couldn't find the key. So instead, he grabbed a long spoon, a hammer and a knife to try to open the door. But when that failed, he says he threw the objects to the floor and jumped over the veranda or balcony instead.
Oh, so that's supposed to explain that sound that the neighbor Adeyemi says he heard.
Right, at least according to Akolade's version of events. But the problem with his version is that it doesn't add up to what the pathologists say happened based on forensic analysis.
According to the pathologist who carried out the autopsy on Titilayo's body, Titilayo was stabbed 76 times.
What? 76?
Yes, she had stab wounds to her left eye, right eye, chest, heart, lungs, liver, diaphragm, hands, and other parts of her body.
Oh my God.
Her chest wall had collapsed, and one particular stab even went through her rib cavity straight to her heart. Her stomach was completely torn open.
Oh my God.
The pathologist said the wounds were consistent with wounds inflicted with a single-edged blade. The weapon taken by the police from the house was consistent with the type of wounds on her body. According to the pathologist, the amount of damage caused to Titilayo's body could not have been self-inflicted because at a point she would have had to drop the knife.
So what about the injuries on Akolade? How did he get them?
We're not quite sure, but 2 weeks after Akolade's arrest, the pathologist actually examined him. And the examination showed that he had 12 injuries on his hand and abdomen. But the injuries were superficial, not deep at all.
So they could have been self-inflicted.
Possibly. Or maybe he got them during the struggle.
On the 21st of February 2014, about 3 years later, Justice Latifa Okunu of an Ikeja High Court found that there was enough evidence to show that Akolade intentionally murdered Titilayo. He was found guilty of killing his wife and sentenced to death by hanging. Now, Akolade's family maintained that their son is innocent. His parents described their son as a well-behaved, God-fearing child who had never shown traits of violence. The family also threw in some accusations about Titilayo and her family, but honestly, none of it explains how she came to have been stabbed 76 times.
Right. And the judge, I'm sure, had to consider who was the last person known to have been in the apartment with Titilayo.
Right. And based on the evidence, no other person had access into the apartment after Akolade left on the 24th, until the 25th, when the door was forced open by the police.
But was a psychological test carried out on Akolade? I mean, the way he murdered her seemed like something snapped in his head.
Yeah, and it almost looks like it was unplanned. For example, he didn't seem to have a destination in mind when he ran. If he did, why wouldn't he have taken all the things he needed? He ended up going back to the apartment. In Nigeria, a lawyer can apply for a psychological test on their clients. They should have checked Akolade's mental state.
Either way, the alleged abuses that Titilayo suffered should have been red flags that something was wrong with this man. We just need to pay more attention to our mental health.
And also, everyone needs to understand that it's okay to walk away from abusive relationships. It's not by force. Join us next week for another True Crime Naija story. This time is a story of a man who gets burnt in his car by a pastor. True Crime Naija is a Triple E Media production. Copyright 2021 Triple E Media Productions. If you enjoyed this episode of True Crime Naija and want to hear more, subscribe to our 234 Audio YouTube channel. Visit our website at 234audio.com and download our 234 Audio app. Episodes of this podcast and other podcasts can also be found on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever you get your podcast. Subscribe and leave us a review. This episode was produced by Richard Anyebe, Anthonieta Kalunta, John Iwodi, Nico Rivers, Dominic Tabakaji, and Sam Tabakaji. Executive producer Rahmat Muhammad. Special thanks to Rabia Hadejia, Aredi Isha, and Mala Iwa Gbado Ikaleku. Stay alert, stay alive. See you next week.